This is William K. MURT, MURT Witness 1, and this is November 1st, 2020. We are now in the last of the 2 months before the end of this crazy year. And I'm going to discuss something that really pisses me off. Now, yesterday there were tweets and a news report that a bunch of hopped up, drunk Texans decided they were going to be a bunch of smartasses and go chasing a bus down the road. Now, it just so happens it was a Biden campaign group out doing what is supposed to be a freedom in this United States, and that is to campaign for the person that they would like to see win an election. You know, this is something that's been going on since the beginning of this country. Now, apparently, these hopped up, drunk Texas rednecks don't believe in the First Amendment and certainly don't believe in public safety because they decided to go out and intimidate a bus driver and some of the volunteers that were being in this caravan with the bus. And one of these hopped up, drunk Texas rednecks actually hit the volunteer's car. Now, there's no disputing it. The driver of the passenger car was in their lane. They were legal. This pickup truck suddenly changed lanes and hit the car. And there's no way that this SUV was going to intimidate this great big hopped up, elevated, off-road designed pickup truck. So to say that anyone in that caravan campaign had any fault in the accident is stupid. There's video evidence of quite the opposite. Someone was even nice enough to catch the license tag of the truck. Now, I've been a professional driver for 40 years. 6 of those years was spent driving the same kind of bus that was involved in the caravan. And I'm pretty sure the driver didn't care who his passengers were. He was doing a job, he was getting paid to do that job, and the last thing he wanted was some drunked up Texas redneck causing an accident which would have messed up his driving record. But at the same time, bus drivers are human, as are truck drivers. And the one thing that we don't like when we're trying to do our job and get down the road is some idiot brake checking us and trying to slow us down and mess up our day. And some drivers may not have the self-control that this bus driver had. Because I guarantee you, if I had been behind the wheel of that bus and these guys pissed me off by doing brake checks and running up close to the side of my bus, the vehicle that brake checked me might well have turned into a sardine can. Now, unlike cars, buses can't stop on a dime. Buses need a lot of room to stop. Now, it's quite clear that the drivers of these pickup trucks have not finished high school, and they did not take any courses in math or physics to understand what happens when a 40,000-pound bus filled with 10,000 passengers, or 10,000 pounds of weight in cargo, being passengers, equipment, luggage, or what have you, crashes into a pickup truck that weighs no more than 6,000 pounds. The pickup truck is going to come out on the losing side. And he's going to wind up either dead or seriously hurt because he decided to play games with a bus. And if another scenario here, if that bus had had a flat tire on the front axle, he suddenly loses control of the bus. Now, there were pickup trucks on the left and right hand side of the bus. So the bus driver had a flat tire and suddenly veered off because he couldn't control the direction of the bus. Some pickup truck driver's family would find out if he had life insurance on him, and they would be out a breadwinner because this guy decided to do something stupid and intimidate a bus. You know, I run into this every day, or did when I drove in my professional career, of people being idiots behind the wheel. And I've seen firsthand the results when somebody does something stupid, like brake checking a commercial vehicle. Commercial vehicles simply cannot react fast enough to these kind of stunts. Not only because of the weight of the vehicle, but the kind of brakes a bus has, or a large truck. They have what are known as air brakes. And that means basically that the brake, you are relying on that truck driver or bus driver to stop and not hit you using brakes supplied by compressed air. You're driving a car that has hydraulic brakes. Hydraulic brakes are 10 times more efficient than air brakes. They stop much faster. Now, for additional reasons of physics, there are reasons why you do not have hydraulic brakes in 40, 50,000 pound vehicles. It would be nice to have, but it would be because of design problems, the industry has gone with air brakes. Now, there's an additional problem when it comes to buses. Now, buses are carrying live cargo, people, passengers. The bus that was being chased around is capable of hauling as many as 53 people. I used to drive a model of bus where I had 57 people on there. And there's also room to get quite a bit of luggage underneath the bus. So when you add passengers, you add possible cargo such as suitcases or equipment of one kind or another, you got a pretty heavy vehicle. And when you're in front of that vehicle, you are hoping to hell that 50, 60,000 pound vehicle has the capability to stop without crushing you to death using air brakes. Brakes that work on compressed air. Now, unlike hydraulic brakes, buses with their compressed air can run out of air. If that bus driver presses down on the brakes too often, all that air goes away. And when the air goes away, you ain't got no brakes. And so when you're sitting there slamming on your brakes in front of a bus, trying to get him to slow down, if he hits his brakes often enough, he's going to lose the air that's needed to stop the bus. And the bus is going to crash into the car, and you're going to wind up with a sardine can instead of a car, and someone in that car, or pickup truck in this case, is going to die. Now, there's another thing about buses that I didn't really mention yet, and that is because the bus is hauling live cargo, being humans and passengers, the brakes are regulated. It's kind of like having on non-skid brakes on a bus. Which means that the stopping distance for a bus is a lot longer than that of a commercial truck. You can slam on the brakes in a commercial truck and lock up all the wheels. You can't do that as easily with a bus because there's a regulation in the system that when you apply the brakes on the bus, it's going to brake a lot more gently than a truck because you don't want to have 50-some people flying around the inside of your bus. So the bus is going to slow down a lot slower. And a bus is not going to react to a panic stop in the same way a truck would. And so people are going to die. And there's another problem that people don't realize about buses. Buses are extremely tall. Some buses can be as high as 13 feet. And they're only 8 to 9 feet wide. This means they're top heavy. And they're also riding on a cushion of air. Virtually all buses nowadays, especially those in the tourism business, are air ride buses. They're all equipped with airbags. And they're basically floating on a cushion of air. And the problem with this is it makes these vehicles inherently unstable. If you've ever seen a bus take a sharp turn, you'll notice the bus leans to one side. That's because there is pressure being put on the airbags on one side and released on the other, and it takes time for the air regulations in the vehicle to compensate for this additional stress on that side. And so the bus has a habit of leaning over. It looks like it's going to tip over. And that creates an additional risk for these drunked up Texas pickup truck drivers that are on top of this bus, because if something happens and that bus makes a violent maneuver, the bus may tip over on top of them and crush them. And again, we'd have another sardine can. Not only would we have injured passengers, but we'd probably have a few dead or injured pickup trucks. And these pickup trucks are only 10 to 20 feet long, which means you can get 2 pickup trucks on the side of a bus at the same time. And so when that bus decides to tip over on top of those trucks, you're going to have a couple sardine cans. And you're going to have lawsuits flying around all over the country because of all the injured people. Now, I would suggest to all the professional truck drivers out there, I don't care who you're going to vote for, but people need to let the department and the Texas Department of Safety know they need to do their job, because they weren't around, or they look the other way for this seriously bad behavior. Now, I've seen truck drivers complain when Antifa and all these other people block the roads so they can't do their job. Well, the same thing is happening here. This bus driver is trying to do a job. He's paid to safely transport people from point A to point B. And if you get a bunch of drunked up Texas rednecks out there pulling a stunt like the one that was pulled, he's not able to do his job. He's driving along at 60, 70 miles an hour, worried he's going to lose his job because these idiots are putting him in danger of having an accident that's going to go on his record, or he's going to get complained about for one reason or another because of these idiots. And another thing that Texans should worry about is, guess who else is watching these incidents with the drunked up Texas rednecks in their little pickup trucks? Automobile insurance companies. And they're going to say, hey, if this is the way people drive in Texas, that creates an increased risk for us as an insurance company, so we're going to raise the insurance rates on everybody. Because these drunked up Texas pickup truck drivers could have caused $1 million accident. Not only would payments have to be made to the bus company for damaging a $100,000 bus, but for the dead and injured in the bus, you're talking about lawsuits from 50 plus different people, lawsuit from the family of the bus driver himself, and lawsuits having to do with the drivers of the pickup trucks who died when their trucks were turned into sardine cans even though they caused the accident. You know, so we're looking at a lot of money that all these insurance companies are going to have to pay out. And so these insurance companies are going to say, hey, if the Texas Department of Public Safety can't do their job and prevent incidents like this, we're going to raise your damn insurance. You know, Texans are notoriously bad drivers to begin with. You can watch all these crash videos on TV or on YouTube, and a lot of these accidents are in Texas. And no, I'm not in Texas. That's an Orlando ambulance. So maybe we got a bad Orlando driver today. So I'm literally chasing an ambulance. Kind of pointed considering the subject I'm talking about. You know, I am sure that if a bunch of Antifa had got into their hopped up, souped up vehicles and did the same thing to a bus driver hauling members of Trump caravans, President Trump wouldn't be up in his rally saying, you know, law and order and all this shit about these drunked up Texas pickup truck drivers harassing a Biden bus driver. He'd be calling them all kinds of names and saying this, that, and the other thing. You know, so if President Trump is for law and order, he needs to condemn this idiotic practice. Because it had the potential of putting Trump voters at risk. You know, one of these pickup drivers, one or more of these pickup truck drivers could have died. There could have been an accident involving this bus that could have put the public at large. You know, somebody that was not part of the caravan, who was not a volunteer, who was not one of the drunked up truck drivers may have been killed by this bus if circumstances played out that way. You know, not everybody on that highway was involved in this caravan in one way, shape, or another. They were people trying to get to point A to point B to do their personal business or get to work or do their job, any of that. And here's a bunch of idiots in pickup trucks squirreling around on the highway, making their day that much harder. And so people need to think of that before thinking about whether they support one candidate or another candidate. They need to think about the conduct of people that get involved in stunts like this. You know, I don't care who wins this damn election. The guy that I voted for doesn't win, that's the way it goes. The guy I voted for wins, I'll be happy. But what I'm not happy about is the way people in this country are conducting themselves when advocating who it is they want to vote for whatever reason. People need to grow up. And they need to grow up and make it so that those of us who are out there making a living on the nation's highway, we can do so without having to worry about getting involved in a situation because a bunch of idiots decided to play games with pickup trucks. So, in 2 days, this is going to be over. At least the voting will stop. Maybe the arguing won't stop. Maybe the disputing the vote won't stop, and everybody on one side will be pissing and moaning, and the other side will be cheering and happy. We'll see. But hopefully this will be the end of the kind of bullshit that we saw on the Texas highways yesterday. And in a personal rebuke to the Texas Department of Public Safety, I've had to deal with you people for years. You've checked my logbooks, you've checked my trucks, you checked my equipment because you say that you're enforcing public safety. Well, I would recommend that you people put down your coffee and donuts, get off your fat asses, get out there and enforce the law so incidents like what happened with this bus does not happen again. This is William K. MURT, MURT Witness 1. Have a good one. End of recording.